Has anybody, okay, well, first of all, you look at the board, there's a lot of words up here. Don't let it overwhelm you. There's a reason why it's up here the way it is, but tonight is really going to be about words. That's why there's no other scripture up here. This is all Daniel 8, 15 through 27. But this is going to play into it. You'll see how in here in a second. A lot of words. Now, here's something funny. I got to break my phone out on this. Has anybody heard of the Gen Z Bible? Okay, so there's a Bible out there now in print called the Gen Z Bible. Yep, and it's translated, I guess you want to say, from the King James Version. I'm going to go ahead and read you 7 verses. And this is from Genesis 1, 1 through 7. In the very start, God made the sky and the earth. So basically, at first, the earth was a hot mess. It didn't have any structure or anything, just emptiness and a darkness all around. But then the Spirit of God started doing its thing, cruising over the oceans. Then God was like, yo, let there be light. And boom, there was light. And God was like, yo, this light is lit. So God separated the light from the darkness like he made sure they don't mix, So like God named the light as day and the darkness as night. And that whole cycle of evening and morning, it marked the first day. It's like, just to clarify, the evening came and then the morning came, and that's how the first day went down. And God was like, yo, there should be like this cool layer between the water, separating it from more water. And like this layer is actually called the expansion. And then God created like this super cool massive sky thing. And he split up the water below it from the water above it. And guess what? It totally happened just like that. So next week, we're going to start using the Gen Z Bible for all this. I know I should probably bag on this and tear it down, but I guess if that's someone's going to pick up the Bible and it puts them in a way, I've already, especially coming from the King James, it's already messed up anyways. So, and you look at the board, we have to transliterate a lot of stuff from the original language in the English that we get screwed up in what we call a normal Bible. So I find it humorous. I'm hoping someday I'll run into somebody who's actually like read this and can actually like recite it to me. We can have some like cool biblical debates. The person probably think I'm making them laughing at them. I'm just laughing at the way it's worded. So anyways, enough on that. Okay, so tonight we're going to go through Daniel, which is the interpretation, 8 verses 15 through 27. These words, we're going to get to these. So how this is going to work tonight is we're going to read those verses, just read basically right through them. I'll point just a couple minor things out. And then we're going to break down some Hebrew words. And then we're going to go reread it. But now I've actually done this thing where I'm actually rewrote. I hate saying the word rewrote, but I wrote this in a way where it took the Hebrew word, its definition by meaning in English, and put it in place of the word that's in English, if that makes sense. Because a lot of times we do not have words that translate word for word. And like I said before, if you were to translate the Bible where it actually made sense from the original language, it's probably about this thick. So sometimes it takes a whole paragraph to understand one word, what it meant in our language. I know we have pretty much a linguist in here, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. So what we'll do is that we'll break it down, and then some of this we're going to be going through. I'll break it down so you can see the words, and these will be words that we're going to be using tonight or in the scripture tonight. Just so we read it, we'll read it through at the end, and it'll just kind of like flow, and you'll be able to hear exactly what it's saying by the intention and the context behind it. And that will actually be on a PowerPoint. I like totally went admin on this stuff. I am not a PowerPointy. This thing doesn't like me either. PowerPointy kind of person. But I managed, and I say that because years ago I was deployed, and my boss, who was a lieutenant colonel, and here's the funny part. I was the NCOIC of what was called the J5, which is a plans department, working for a special operations command. But anyways, I'm the NCOIC, which that sounds cool when you get your NCOER and they put your little ward up. He was a non-commissioned officer in charge of this department. He had 14 officers. I was the only non-commissioned officer. It's like, oh, wow, I'm so cool. But one day he comes up to me, and this way after I started there, I was we were doing what's called a left seat, right seat. So the guy I'm changing with, I was only there for a couple months at this thing. He's like, here's your station. I was like in a little cubicle thing. Here's your station. Here's your computers. Yeah, plural, computer with an S. I can't handle one computer. They gave me 3. It's like, how do I handle this? And then my boss, the lieutenant colonel, he's British, and he was like, hey, I need you to make a PowerPoint on, I can't remember what it was on. It had something, I don't remember exactly what it was on, but it took me an entire, well, our days were 12 hours long. It took me 8 hours to do a PowerPoint that probably realistically somebody could probably do in about 30 minutes to an hour. I was like, how do I make this circle over here? And how do I put this over here? I was a complete bumbling idiot on this. Then I started making friends with the officers. They were really good at this stuff. Like, hey, can you do this PowerPoint for me? Because I can't do it. So I did do a PowerPoint. It's very simple and easy. I'm proud of myself. First PowerPoint in like 6 years. But anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and read through this. And like when we go through it right now, we'll read it. And I'm gonna say the word. You'll see the one I'm talking about that'll be in Hebrew, but I'm not gonna define it at this time. That's a lot of what this board has to do. All right, so we'll start with verse 15, chapter 8. It says, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. And behold, there stood before me one having the appearance of man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, and it called, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So he came near me where I stood, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, understand, O son of man, that the vision is for a time of the end. The word here is kates. And when he had spoken to me, I fell into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. But when he touched me and made me stand up, he said, behold, I will make known to you what shall be at the latter end. The word here is bakarit, of the indignation. The word there is za'am, for indignation. For it refers to the appointed time of the end. Again, this word now here is kates. As for the ram you saw with the 2 horns, these are the kings of Media and Persia. And the goat is the king of Greece. And the great horn between his eyes is the first king. As for the horn that was broken, in place which 4 others arose, 4 kingdoms shall arise from his nation, but not with his power. And at the latter end, Ubakarith, of their kingdom, when the transgressors, Pasha, have reached their limit, a king, a bold face, as Panim, one who understands riddles shall arise. His power shall be great, but not by his own power. And he shall cause fearful destruction and shall succeed in what he does, and destroy mighty men and the people who are the saints. By his cunning he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and in his own mind he shall become great. Without warning he shall destroy many, and he shall even rise up against the prince of princes. That would be Jesus Christ. And he shall be broken, but not by his own by no human hand. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that have been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. And I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I rose and went about the king's business, but I was appalled by the vision and did not understand it. Even he had a hard time understanding this. And it's understandable because this is so long ago. So remember last week, it was just that Daniel was on that Ulai Canal, and he's seen the ram with the 2 horns with the Media, Persia, and the kings. And here comes Alexander the Great, not touching the ground, flying across, going from west to east, and he kills the ram, and then he takes over. Then later on, he dies, and then his 4 generals take over and develops the kingdom that we showed on the map last week, which a lot of people call the Macedonian Empire. And then remember the word that we talked about last week, and I said, remember this word was the word that had to do with the horn that was a conspicuous horn. And I said, now that's going to come in tonight. And then this is just the interpretation that's given to Daniel by Gabriel. Now, doesn't seem like a whole lot, and it will tonight, because we're going to break this stuff down and understand what we're talking about. So when we read this, but for last night, I remember I have my pen, I might need it. So, but for last week, I said, remember that word that had to do with the horn that was the, what's that word? I just said a second ago. What? Conspicuous. The conspicuous, that word doesn't even make sense to me when you think about it, but the conspicuous horn. So last week we learned what that word was kazus, all right? Now, kazus, and this is what we're going to start getting at this. So kazus comes from a root word, which is kazah, all right? And this is a word that has to do with to see, all right? So kazah, right there, means to see or behold, but it has a deeper connotation of perceiving, contemplating, or having a vision. It goes beyond casual sight, referring to a more profound or spiritual seeing, often associated with prophecy or revelation. Now, you think, okay, that's the word see. That's the root word. Okay, that's fair. But the next three words you see up here in red, all right, in Hebrew, these are other words that are the word see. So the word we're looking at here, kazah, being a root word, there's a reason why this word is being used, and we just can't use the word for see because it means more than that. So the next word you see up there is ra'ah. Now, this is the most common and basic word for the word see. I see something. There's nothing revelation-like stuff or prophecy or nothing crazy about it. It's just I see. The next word down there is hitbonen. I almost said that in German. Hitbonen is to observe or look closely. So way to explain this, like, so if you're watching a football game and, you know, the ref throws a flag up in the air and then they're going to do a replay, you just kind of observe and look closely. No. I know he's offsides. Obviously, if it's the other team. And if you're the other team, it's like, no, he wasn't offsides. But you observe and look closely. So it's nothing future. It's nothing prophetic. That's just where it comes from. And the last one there, hishatakel, means to look at or to gaze. So you would look at or to gaze at a sunset over an ocean or something. So the word see, and this is what's important, is this word is chosen specifically for a reason as a root to kazuth because it has something to do with a revelation or a prophecy. And remember, this is the horn that was in homie's head. Now, this is a related word, so you guys understand, is this next word is kazon. All right, so we're going to get back to this one, but kazon, this is the word that's used for vision. So guess who's having a vision? Guess who's having a prophetical revelation by seeing a horn that it was prophetical? Is Daniel in this thing. He is having a revelation or a prophetical thing that he is seeing in context to a kazah, not into a ra'ah, hitbonen, or a hishtakel. All right, now, here's what it means. Kazon means vision, primarily refers to the phenomenon of a visionary experience such as a dream, revelation, or oracle. It is often used in prophetic context to describe divine communication or a prophet's vision. All right, so it gives a little bit more understanding to the concept from this to what the root word actually is. It's a prophetic thing. It's a revelation. He's seeing something. So that kazon, when it's talking about Daniel having a vision, he's having a kazon. It's prophetical. It's a revolution. It's revelation. It's prophecy from the root of kazah. Now, the last word down here, the kazuth, this is the word that we used last week that was talking about the horn. And here's what it means. And it's the conspicuous horn that was on not only the goat that was coming across, heading toward the ram, had a conspicuous horn, but also the four generals that took over later were four conspicuous horns that took over the same land, the same country, just broke it up in four different pieces. Now, this means emphasizes a striking character or conspicuousness of what is seen. It can mean striking appearance or a revelation. For instance, and now here's the cool thing. Even with that, it actually gives an example of where this comes from and what it means. For instance, in the book of Daniel, it is used to describe a notable or conspicuous horn in a vision. It can also be translated as agreement. It is likely due to something being looked upon with approval or a clear, evident pact. So when you take the word kazah, put it into here, we know it's a revelation, it's a prophecy, is the root word in here. It's not just looking at something. And we're talking about a horn, a conspicuous horn. It's an inanimate object. But remember, this is a vision that is symbolic in nature, although these events did happen. But a real goat was not running across the entire peninsula and across all of Europe and Asia at the time to go take out a ram, and that ended in now, okay, so now a goat is in charge. We know that's not what it actually is saying. But here's the point I want to make. So he's making a deal about these horns on Alexander the Great or the Grecian Empire that was continuous to the four the four generals that took over. But notice it never mentioned anything about the horns of the ram. They weren't conspicuous, suggesting and meaning that there was nothing prophetic into those two, which was the Media and the Persian Empire combined, that it wasn't prophetic. But this is prophetic. So what it would boil down to is that if you're talking about a kazuth, and we're going to get into this, that this would be, it would be a revelation. Now, this is taken from Kazaa as well. It would be a revelation of a notable, a notable agreement, an evident pact. All right, so these are the words that's used in the definition. So think about that for a second. What would be an evident pact? What would be an agreement that through a vision by God that is given to Daniel, what is a pact or an agreement that he has made that he is telling him? I know most people probably have this answer, like probably don't want to say it out loud. That's fine. It says covenant. That is the agreement. That is the pact he's made with man. So he is talking to Daniel. We know this is prophetic to the end of times, to when the Antichrist, all the things are going to happen. And that is the fulfillment of his redemptive plan. We learned about this in Revelation 4, when we've seen there was Jesus Christ. Then we've seen that he had the redemptive plan. And then we've seen the vision, the understanding of his agreement, his what? Covenant. Thank you. Boy, I'm sorry. Of his covenant. So, and that covenant goes all the way back to Abram. So this is a fulfillment of a covenant. So he is seeing there's something about this. And here's the thing. There's something about this goat and the goat and the four generals. There's something prophetic about them and what is going on and where they're at. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. But I want you to start seeing and understanding that thing of a horn, a conspicuous horn, when it's like, oh, that's just kind of weird. No, there's words that back it up. This has something to do with a revelation of prophecy, a notable agreement of an evident pact. And that would be, anybody can try to argue me on this, but the only pact, the only thing that really God has done is his covenant. That is a pact between man and him. All right. So that's Chazuth and chasm, or kazuth. All right. So the next word we were just reading on here. Now, I know a lot of you probably remember the word acharit. That is the Aramaic word for end. And if you remember, we were talking about this, it meant end or outcome, posterity, remnant or residue, reward, or future or latter days, to refer to the last period of history. And if it was bakarit, that was where it came into being a future or latter days, the last period of history. But the other ones were just simply akarit, right? And they weren't talking about something overly futuristic. Now, this word here, ubakarith, I'm sorry, it's still reet. I still say it wrong when I read it. All right. It's very, very similar, but I want to be fair. I don't want to just go, oh, hey, basically, guys, here's the same word. We're just going to throw it out. No, because we've changed from Aramaic to now Hebrew. So the word that is used in its place now is the word right here of akarith. And that's how it would be spelled differently than Aramaic. So there's one little nuance to it. Because it has a K, they use a CH. At the end of it, it'd be an H. They don't have one over here. Now, of course, this is translated in English. So there's one little nuance. It is a different word by how you would so-called spell it. But there is a slight difference, and I want to be fair and honest about what it is. So akarith, akarit, all right, this is a word for the word of end. And here's what it means. End, latter time, future, or posterity. The word refers to a future end or a final outcome, often used in the phrase of end of days, a prophetic or eschatological context to refer to the last period of history. Now, that's pretty much what akarit is, but I'm being fair. Here, this in akarit, it also meant remnant, residue, and reward. This word does not mean the same thing in that. Not that that's a big deal for what we're reading tonight, but I want you to understand, I'm being fair and honest, the difference between the two languages, and we're breaking down this word akarith. Now, the other one was bakarith, but this is ubakarith. Bakarit, it's T. I always want TH and th at the end. So how this breaks down is the U, or the U at the beginning, means and. Oh, good catch. The B with a little hyphen right there, that's a preposition for at or in. So it would be and in or and at the something. So now the word that's following after it, the noun, is the akari. So in or and at the end, or in the end, at in the end. All right, so now you got to define what it's talking about, and we just read what akarith is. Akarith, I'll read again, is end, latter time, future, or posterity. The word refers to a future end or a final outcome. It is often used to phrase, end of days, a prophetic eschatological context to refer to the last period of history, a future and final outcome. Now, just like this over here, I want to be fair and understand that when I'm using this, that I'm not taking this out of context. I'm not making this word mean the end that I want it to mean. All right, this is where people have the poor transliterations. All these words right here mean end as well. So you have to look at the word in Hebrew. What is the actual context? And we'll just zip through them really quick. The first one up there is suf. This is the most common word for end. It's used in the general endings like end of the year. There's another word, ketz, the next word down there. Ooh, did I miss that one? I did. So there's another one. I'm just going to slash it. K-E-T-Z, ketz, kates. All right. Kates means often used for the end of a specific time period or a limit, used in phrases at the end of a definitive time. It also can refer to an extreme, limit, or extremity. So kind of like I'm just using a football analogy. So you're watching football when the first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, the fourth quarter ends, when the clock strikes zero, that's the end of the limit, the definitive time. Like this game is only going to be 60 minutes long by the clock, but it's still 3 hours on TV plus commercials. But it ends after 1 hour. That's the end of it. That's its limit. The next one up there, kala, means the next two words are very similar. It means to be complete, to be finished, or to be accomplished. The next one, tamam, means complete or finished. They're very similar. One's a to be and one's not a to be. But point being, just letting you guys know, there's different forms of the word end, and which end is the word that's being used in the context of what we're learning. Now, the next one down here, this is going on way on board, the word sofit. It means it refers to the final form of a letter at the end of a word in Hebrew. It doesn't mean end itself, but rather a final form letter to the end of a word. So it's a letter that be at the end of the word. There's another form of it to the point end. Obviously not contextual to what we're talking about, nor are these other threes when we're still talking about the ubakarit. Now there's one other word down here, the word ketz, it's kates, another Hebrew word. We're going to get to that one in a couple minutes, because that's another really important one to understand, because that is actually one of the words that's used as we're reading through. Now, so to put this in this ubakari, so now we know it's a future end of time of history, and by definition, future end or the final outcome of the last period of history. So it's not just at the end of something, because that would be a ketz. So if you're talking about, we're going through this thing right now where you have the goat ripping across and smokes the ram, that it's not talking about the end of that, the ketz of that period of time to what is the Grecian Empire or the four generals. No, it's well beyond that. All right, so that's that. Now we're going to talk about the word kates real quick. So kates, this is another word for end, but here's its definition. It means an extremity, after, utmost border, end of an infinite process. So think about that for a second. That word gets used. Extremity, after, the utmost border, end, infinite of process. So a process is in place. We have a covenant in place. That is a process from the point of talking to Abram to the point that Christ is going to return the second time to fulfill the redemptive plan that he has in place. All right, there's a process. It's infinite. So there's an ending point, but it's got to end at an end of a process. The end of a goat chasing a ram and the Grecian Empire is not the end of the process. How do we know that? Because in Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 2, there was still 2 more empires after this empire. Remember, it goes into the Roman Empire, the legs that are iron. Then it goes into the feet and the toes that are iron and clay. So this can't be talking about the end happens at the time of Greece. It's got to be prophetic. It's got to be something bigger than that. And that's where the word Kates come in. As we'll read, it's talking about being the end of an infinite process. There's a point somewhere in the future that matters. Now, next we're going to look at the word hazam. All right, it's also listed as, it's a root word of zam. So hazam, this is the word we have in there for indignation. All right, so indignation is the word hazam. All right, and it comes from the root word of za'am, meaning strictly froth at the mouth. All right, so you could read and go, oh, God's frothing at the mouth. That's kind of a weird thing, but okay. Figuratively, it means fury, especially of God's displeasure with sin, angry, indignation, and full rage. So this word, he's mad, obviously, but it's fury, especially of God's displeasure with sin, angry, indignation, and rage. Okay, that's this word here, hazam, into the root of zam. There's a lot of words. Well, it's all going to make sense in a minute. Now, the next word, haposhim. If I'm saying that right, it might be shim. Haposhim, all right? Now, this word, and the pasha is the root to it. So this word is for transgressors, a word that's used within what we just read. So the word for haposhim, now, haposhim is a masculine plural particle with a definite article of the. It's a masculine plural particle. Transgressors, plural. There's your plural part to it. And it's the. So the transgressors. But what is the transgressors comes from the word pasha, which is the root word. And it means, here's the cool thing. This is how you start really realizing things, the way things are worded. It means to break away from just authority. I'm going to stop it right there. There's a little more to it. To break away from just authority. Not from I just broke away from authority, not like the kind of a just, but a just authority, meaning a righteous authority, the correct authority. So meaning, you do an extreme. If you have a girl who happens to be being trafficked and is a sex slave, and she's being held in a building, and she escapes, that's not pasha because she escaped from an authority that's not just. I hope that makes sense. So the word just here is the righteous. So pasha is to break away from, to move away from, to separate your way from a just authority, i.e. trespass, quarrel, and my favorite word right here, apostasy. We've talked about the apostasy. Now we're going to go back to that in just a second, but this transgressors are people that are doing an apostasy. Because apostasy is something that broke away from a just, what's the right word? A just authority, which is God. They are now in a denial of who Jesus Christ actually is. That's a transgressor. Now, the next part, this az panim, all right, in what we read in the ESV that I wrote out, says boldface. Okay, let's break it down. So, az, the first word you see up here, this translates to bold, but it actually does not translate bold. It's not even where in the stupid, I shouldn't say stupid, in the definition or even the etymology of the word. It comes from azaz, A-Z-A-Z, means strong, vehement, harsh. And then what's cool, the final definition behind az is fierce, but it's combining 4 other things that actually what fierce means. So az is fierce, but to be fierce, it's inclusive of being greedy, mighty, powerful, rough, and strong. Now, just put in your head one moment, an antichrist, lawless person that would fit perfect of being greedy, mighty, powerful, rough, and strong. And it is talking in the scriptural reading, it is talking about the antichrist, the one that's going to come, the whittle horn that everybody's been hearing about. But that is the word for bold. It is fierce. Something strong, vehement, harsh, fierce, and it marries all those other things that define what fierce is. The second part is panim. Now, this is what's funny, because it says in our book, in our Bibles, at least in the ESV, I didn't look at all the other versions, is the word face, like F-A-C-E, the thing we wear, everybody wears on top of their shoulders. And it does mean face, but it does mean face, but it is not a literal term to face. It has a broader meaning, such as a presence, before, or surface. Now, meaning, to break it down, like if, I'm just using examples here. If you were to say the face of the ocean, you're talking about the top of the ocean. There's the face of the ocean. There is the panim of the ocean. It doesn't literally have a face. It's just the top of it. It's the face of it. The other one meaning for it is before. So you could say the face of history. So it's something you're looking at, something is a face of. It's not a literal face. You're not looking back and going, oh, wow, that was me 20 years ago. Well, we do have a lot of cameras now, but you know what I'm saying? That's what it's talking about. But the other one, the one that's striking and the one that is actually contextual, is presence, right? He has a face of presence. It's his presence, or a person's presence. So when you put these two together, az panim, you come up with someone that has a fierce presence. Could kind of sound like someone's a bad dude that we might want to call, that people like to call the Antichrist. That is the literal literal translation from this. It's not a bold face. It's not like when the Antichrist rises, he's going to go in and make deals, and he's kind of around for a while before the second half. You're going to be going, that dude's got a real bold face. Look at that square jaw. Woo! I mean, people, women out there going, ooh, that's a sexy man. But anyways, it's not a literal face. Why? Why are you blushing? I'm sorry, man. I got kind of a rounded jaw face on it. Anyways, okay. We're going down a rabbit hole. So, anyways, so that is what these things are translating to understand them in context. And the reason for all the red is understand there's other words for these that are different meaning. These words actually have very specific linguist meanings in Revelation and prophecy. And these ones understand exactly what is being said. It's not just a bold-faced person. It's someone that has a fierce presence. Now, the last thing before we go into, we read this, and we'll throw it up here in a minute, is I want you to remember, because I'm bringing things together. We've already talked about when we were studying the Church of Laodicea. Then the Church of Laodicea, I don't need my pen right now. Church of Laodicea, we broke down to understand it was about the end of a period of time, the seasons, this ends of the church age, the seventh church, and that we were now into what was called the apostasy. That was the Church of Laodicea. We're leading into an apostasy. So what we just read was apostasy, is when something moves away from a just authority from God. You do no longer believe that Jesus Christ is God. Or you don't even believe Jesus Christ at all. But either way, it's an apostasy. We're going the opposite direction. And then we also went back and read what an apostasy, that from the apostasy will come the lawless one. Lawless one, that's why I always say we call it the Antichrist. The lawless one comes from an apostasy, the season we're in now, and he is going to make a covenant for 1 week, which is 7 years, with Israel. So everybody's kind of caught up. So when we read into this, it all starts making sense that all the Bible, when you start putting it all together, it kind of forms. So now we got all this down. Now we're going to go ahead and read 15, and we're not going to do 27, because 27 is, and I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I rose and went about the king's business, but I was appalled by the vision and did not understand. Okay, we're going to do 15 through 26, the prophetic part. And now we're going to take all these words, all these definitions, and when we do put this up here in just 1 second, what you're going to see is you'll see it we'll be reading it, and it's I think it should be really big, but if it's in red, all right, this is where the whole thing of doing my PowerPoint expertise things, I knew how to change the color of the letters thing. Thanks, man. I was proud of myself. I could even bold it. I could italicize it. I could underline it. I know. I was like, man. That probably took me to figure that out. It probably took me a bachelor's degree of time to figure that out. So anyways, where's it going? Okay, so if it's in red, those are the words that I added, which is the definition of the word that you will see in parentheses that'll be in bold black. All right, so you'll see the English word that's in the ESV, you'll see the English word, then a hash, and then you'll see the like case. You'll see that the Hebrew word, all right? But just before, what's in red is just taking that definition. So as we read it, you're reading right through it by its definition. Now, I will not read, when we read this, I'm not going to say these words. I'm not going to go blah, 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 and Kate's. I'm not going to repeat them. We're just going to read through it. But the highlighted or the parentheses, bold parts, you'll know that red part is a part that's the definition by context, by definition of what it actually says. So you want to go and throw the PowerPoint up? Oh, man, that's so cool. Let me move this out of the way. Everybody's got to have a good view of this. Look at that. That is just, wow. See that? Underlined, red, fat, or, oh, sorry, bold, 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 bold. Same thing over here. So you see, that's in red. That is the definition that comes from the English word that is from the Hebrew word. So we'll go ahead and read this out loud. And that would be the other page. There it is. All right. Verse 15. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. And behold, there stood before me one having the appearance of man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, and it called Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So he came near when I stood, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, understand, O son of man, that the vision is for the time of the end of the infinite process. And when he had spoken to me, I fell into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. But he touched me and made me stand up. He said, behold, I will make known to you what shall be at the future final outcome of history, of the fury of God's displeasure with sin. For it refers to the appointed time of the end of the infinite process. As for the ram you saw with the two horns, these are kings of Media and Persia. And the goat of the king of Greece. And the great horn, described as a revelation of a notable agreement or pact, a covenant between his eyes, is the first king. As for the horn that was broken, in place of which four others arose, described as a revelation of a notable agreement and pact, a covenant, four kingdoms shall arise from his nation, but not with his power. And at the future final outcome of history of their kingdom, when those of the apostasy have reached their limit, a lawless one, a king, having a fierce presence, one who understands riddles shall arise. Hold right there. All right. Okay. Now, notice what it says at the final future outcome of history, way in the future. It says, and we're talking about, you're thinking Greece, you're thinking the four kings. They have the prophetic horn. That's their empire, and it says of their kingdom. See, this is where we get a little bit screwed up. What do you mean their kingdom? Their kingdom's over. The Macedonian kingdom and empire is gone. No, it's not. Is Persia gone? No, it's just called Iran. So let's take a look at their kingdom. Pop it. The next one, there it is. There's their kingdom, all right? This is the secluded empire. That is the area that's taken over by Alexander the Great. These are the 4, 2, 3, 4, the kings that go over. It's prophetic, all right? You're thinking, yeah, so what? Next map. Let's take this map and overlay it to the map that's from Ezekiel's prophecy, who's doing what and who's coming against Israel. Now, that right there, what you just seen, would take up part of India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, a little bit of Kazakhstan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, part of Jordan, Israel, and which would be also Lebanon, but at the time it wasn't Israel. This is part of what would be kind of Canaan or Palestine, and part of Egypt. And what this doesn't show on here, because this is in the way, Turkey actually extends up in here close to the Greece area now. All right, so if you look, that empire that we just looked at takes up all of this. Every one of those countries are in existence. Every one of those countries are Arab. Every one of those countries are Islam. Every single one of them. And this is from the prophecy of Ezekiel. The kingdom still stands, just like Persia still stands. Just call Iran. You talk to people from Iran, and actually we know somebody. I'm a friend, and he's not Iranian. He claims I am Persian. It doesn't even exist anymore. Yes, it does. It's just under a different name. Okay? So that is the point of their kingdom. It still stands today. That is the prophecy that is talking about in Daniel. It's also the prophecy happening from Ezekiel. That kingdom, what you've seen, it just has different names to it. Yeah, Alexander the Great is dead. So what? Anyways, we'll go back to the next one. Now we're going to reread that verse. This is verse 23. It should be the next one. Yep. And at the final outcome of history of their kingdom we just looked at, that is modern, still lives today, when those of the apostasy have reached their limit, a lawless one, a king, having a fierce presence, one who understands riddles, shall arise. His power shall be great, but not by his own power, by the power of the dragon, Revelation 13:2. And he shall cause fearful destruction, and shall succeed in what he does, and destroy mighty men, and the people who are the saints. By his cunning he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and his own mind he shall become great. Without warning he shall destroy many, and he shall even rise up against the prince of princes, the Christ, and he shall be broken, but by no human hand, by the hand of Christ. The vision of the 2300 days, the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it refers for many days from now. Okay, so that is the prophecy. I'm hoping you're seeing what it means when you put the actual language in there. It makes all the difference in the world. This isn't a kingdom that ended now. If you go back to Nebuchadnezzar, chapter 2, Daniel 2, about Nebuchadnezzar's dream, it doesn't end when the Grecian Empire comes. It doesn't end when Antiochus Epiphanes pops up, because it tells us, unless you want to contradict the Bible and just say, oh, Daniel made a mistake with his vision in Daniel 2 of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, that there's no more empires. I'll say it, bullcrap. There is two. He said what he said. He knew the vision. And if you want to deny God and what he is doing, I mean, that's up to anybody's thing out there. But you have to make everything match. Everything has to conform to each other. You can't just go, I'm just going to talk about this one because that one doesn't make sense. So I can make people believe there's a Roman Empire. So I can make people believe it was Antiochus Epiphanes, that it was in 70 AD, all these things. No, there's still an empire to come. Now, I told you that next week that I'm going to go ahead giving you all this information. And next week, we're going to bring in one more prophecy out of Revelation. I'm going to have to jump ahead a little bit, pull out of context, bring it back, so you can see something that has to do with countries and understand it. And then next week, we're going to go back into a little bit of this and see what the 11 countries actually are. You will see them, you will recognize them, and I'll probably at the beginning, as we're talking about it, I'll see if anybody can actually like point at it or say something about it, because you guys already seen it. You guys already know what it is. You just probably don't really realize it right now until we put all this together. And there'll be one other word. We're actually going from Daniel 7. We're going to pull up next week. One more other Hebrew word. We've already talked about it, but we're going to break it out, that it's going to prove everything we're talking about, and with absolution prove that there is no standing up of a Roman Empire. Because even if you think about it, the only time, quote unquote, the Roman Empire is even mentioned, it was in half of a verse, and they were called legs of iron. That is the only time it's talked about. And if Roman Empire is actually going to re-stand up, then why somebody with their PhD of 4.5 months of education explain to me how Jesus Christ was alive during the Roman Empire. He taught, he preached, he called out Pharisees, he called out the Romans, and left behind, I shouldn't say that way, basically kind of left behind a bunch of disciples. And they prophesied and they taught. How come nowhere in the New Testament, including Revelation, does it ever speak of something against the Roman Empire? Why would Christ not go, I'm coming after you guys. You guys can come back and I'm going to smash you. The only reference is when the Jews believed when he arrived, because it happened to be the Roman Empire, that he was going to take that empire over, which is what he never did, because there's no prophecy to him taking over a Roman Empire. I know I get excited about that, because I'm tired of people saying that stuff. Now, so that's the end for the lesson, but for those that watched, now it's a quick change there. For those that watched, those that came, or if you guys have watched the Dragon's Prophecy, I hope many have, kind of seen it, that you're seeing that what we've been talking about since January, but more recent times, that it really, like I said, me and him didn't talk, but you're seeing that the things that he was portraying and putting out, the archaeological evidence, the scriptural evidence, the things that are happening, the things that are happening with Islam, with Palestine, the same things I've been saying, that you might be starting to see, wow, there might be some reality to this. I mean, it's something to be looking at. And me and Phil were talking, and I mean, you can look at the elections that happened yesterday, and look who took over mayor. And here's what I'm going to say. One side you can look and go, this is a problem. Okay, I think it's awesome, because it only proves that this is happening, this thing to be actually accurate and correct. 100%, because I was talking about this 3 years ago, and I actually talked about this 11 years ago. It wasn't even scriptural context, the way things are going. So I don't like what it does, but it only proves more to everything that the Bible is telling us is true, and the things the Bible has prophesied is going to happen. So last thing, and this has nothing to do with the teaching, I just want to give a little, let you guys know, there may be a thing coming up here fairly shortly, or it could be in the beginning of January. I don't know. I just got a notice on it the other day that I may be having to leave. I don't know, having is the wrong word. I may be leaving. Just so you know, I can't. I'm on what we call because I'm on social media. This is open source, so I'm not going. I can't tell you where I'm going, especially on open source, and exactly what I'm doing. I will be leaving country. And it could be one for about a month and come back and be gone for maybe 3 months. Phil and I are talking this out, like how we can keep this going, how we can make it happen. We're not quite sure yet, because if I do go here fairly shortly, this just came up last week. But it's something if I get to go, I'm proud of what I get to go do. I'll just put it that way. But it is not military. I'm not working for the government. It's something completely different. But just so you guys know, be prepared if something comes up. I mean, it won't be like leave tomorrow. Better not be. But it won't be like leave tomorrow. We'll still be able to do another one, obviously. But just there could be a hiccup in this. And like I said, me and Phil will work this out and figure out how to do it. So anyways, thanks for everybody's attention tonight, man. I hope that made a lot of sense. Hope you're seeing where this is going. It's not hard to understand. The prophecies are true. And what helped me the most, honestly, besides the words and everything, was maps. Was breaking out, like, where is this? I didn't know where the heck the Ulai Canal was. You know, where's this town? Where's this city? Where is this talking about? And I just kept almost like layering things. Like, wow, this all says one thing. But anyways, thanks for tonight. Any questions?